So have you ever been walking and you get a little pebble in your shoe and you try as hard as you can to move it out of the way, try to ignore it, and no matter what you do, you still feel it there. Imagine having that feeling with like every piece of clothing, every seam, every tag, every button um, as you go through your day. And that's the reality for me and for a lot of people like me. And during this presentation, I hope to imagine a new approach to clothing that caters to those who are sensitive to these issues. But before we get into that, I want to explain a little bit more about myself and why this problem is interesting to me. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Iron Maiden, but it's sort of this torture device where you go into the chamber and all these nails are digging into you. And for me, this was like an Iron Maiden. I came out into the world experiencing everything in like a 3D IMAX type scenario where everything was just chaotic and I could feel every detail of every piece of fabric, everything going on in the world. But I didn't have the tools or the language to understand that at the time, but now I do. And the reason I felt that way is because I'm autistic. But not knowing that, I sort of created this mask to hide what was going on the inside. I just knew that whatever was happening was not what was appropriate to the situation. And so, I did my best to just keep that chaos internal. And it worked very well for me, actually. I went to an Ivy League school, went and worked on Wall Street, went to business school, worked in consulting, got selected to the Forbes 30 under 30. But inside, I was exhausted, performing this high achieving person while also on the inside not really knowing who I was and feeling, really just drained. So the first chance I had to sort of take a break from that life and rethink things, I did. And it really hit me in my body, all the things that I had been suppressing. And it was around that time I got diagnosed as autistic. And it really was an opportunity for me to reimagine what I was interested in and what I wanted to create in the world, and transitioned into a career in design. And over the last 3 years, I've designed retail stores, pop-ups, brand campaigns. And it's also really invited me to think about what is the role of a neurodivergent designer and how can I shape, what we see and feel and hear in a way that's particular to my experience. So what is neurodivergence? It's broadly all the neurological differences that we observe from birth: ADHD, autism, Tourette's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, other things as well. But many of these groups do have a heightened sensory sensitivity. And 1 in 7 people are estimated to be neurodivergent. So there's probably quite a few of you in the audience as well. And who serves this market today, especially when it comes to clothing? It's pretty rough. I mean, there's sort of like the medicalized black, gray, white socks for diabetics. There's the pathologized, kid-oriented handwriting programs next to your sensory-friendly clothes, sort of implying that you need to be fixed. There's something wrong with you. And then there's kid-oriented stuff, really implying that only sensitive children exist, but sensitive adults couldn't possibly. So this is a big market. 36 million in the US, and more adults are getting diagnosed every year, especially as the access to information and the internet allows them to discover these things about themselves. I also think we can look to models like OXO tools with universal design, and that when you design for a niche audience, you end up helping a lot of people. So these were designed for people with arthritis, but many people find them comfortable, easy to use. So what would a neurodivergent-centric brand look like? Well, first, it would allow us to show up completely as we are. It would express our body language and way of being in the world. It would express our creativity and celebrate it. And finally, it would be fun. So enter Smoosh, a sensory-friendly brand created by and for the neurodivergent community. We would start with socks. That's my #1 pain point. Really hard to find seam-free. And then expand into other basics like tees, sweatpants, sweatshirts, and eventually into home goods, accessories, things like fidget toys, just designed in a better way. Imagining this as starting as an online store and then eventually expanding it into an editorial platform where we can highlight neurodivergent voices, and continue to grow that conversation. Because just like biodiversity, neurodiversity is important to our future. Here are just some of the big names who have disclosed that they are also autistic, from Anthony Hopkins, Daryl Hannah, David Byrne, Courtney Love. We have the first autistic host of SNL, which is actually Dan Aykroyd, and then the second autistic host of SNL, Elon Musk. And however you feel about him, or a lot of these conversations are happening now, and there's not really a place to have them that's neurodivergent run. So my ask for today is just referrals to anybody who's created a similar kind of business or product. I'd love to talk to anyone who's done something like this before. And I look forward to talking with some of you in the breakout rooms. I'd love to talk about some of the things we didn't get to cover, like inclusivity, accessibility, which is really important to this as well. We just launched our Instagram, so feel free to follow along or sign up for our newsletter for updates. So thank you, and look forward to chatting with you all later.